Okay, and welcome to Concord TV's live annual budget presentation. We're doing things a little bit differently this year. You may recall in past years, we were all sitting in the Concord TV studio. With the COVID-19 pandemic, we're unable to do so. So we're doing this meeting virtually to present our annual budget. So David Murdo, board chair of Concord TV, I believe you had just a quick little kind of introduction to the meeting.
I do. The annual live budget presentation is a requirement of our contract with the City of Concord. Article 2B, Concord Community TV agrees to provide a budget by May 15th showing the next year's proposed revenues and expenditures, showing current year budget, estimated current year revenues and expenditures, and 2 years previous actual expenditures and appropriate explanatory details. Explanatory details shall include the derivative of major revenues and expenditures and explanations of significant year-to-year changes in numbers. Said budget is to be presented to the public at an open meeting and cablecast on Concord Community TV, a notice of which shall be posted on the Concord Community TV website at least 10 days prior to the meeting. So here we are this evening to present our budget, and I turn it back to Josh.
I didn't give you the fun part, did I? That's for sure. But thank you for reading that. Thanks for reading that. So if you bear with me just for a second, everybody, I am going to pull up the, there we go. So I have a couple of presentation slides here. Hopefully everyone at home can read that okay. I know the font is a little bit small. If you look at the columns, there's column A, which is the sort of the line item number, column B, which is the explanation of what that is, and then you'll see columns C, D, E, F, and G are the past couple fiscal years, and then the current year budget, the estimated current, and then the column on the far right is what I am proposing for this year's budget. So I'm going to go over a couple of the major line items that you see. In particular, franchise fees. We're locking in at an estimate because we actually do not know at this point, but we're estimating $260,000 for franchise fees this year, which we receive quarterly. And real quick, I did want to mention, because Mike mentioned, made a good point earlier today or yesterday, that when you look in column F at franchise fee, that's obviously still a low number. That's because quarter 4 is coming in about 10 days, I would guess. So that we're going to be at 300,000 once that actually comes in. So a lot of the numbers you see in column F are just year to date. I haven't, counted my eggs before they've hatched, so to speak. Looking at a couple other revenue sources, underwriting income, I'm being ambitious because we're going to be seeking out underwriting for a couple programs. We're going to look for underwriting for Community Conversations, which is a regular program of ours. And we're going to look at other underwriting opportunities because it's definitely difficult times. And I know some businesses may not be looking to do underwriting, but we're a unique underwriting opportunity in the fact that it's video programming. So we're definitely going to pursue those $500,000. We're going to look at potentially CHS Sports. I talked to the NHIAA, and they have no problem with us getting underwriting for high school sports. So definitely for those football games, the hockey games, all the work Charlie puts in, and Peter, that we're going to look for underwriting for that. Next line, contributions income. That primarily is a donation the Boys and Girls Club makes as a way of thanking.
Josh, could you explain to me what underwriting is?
Yes, underwriting is another word for sponsorship, like with PBS.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought. I just was curious.
Yeah, this program brought to you by, it's similar, David's show, What's Happening at the Audi, has the UPS store as an underwriter. So underwriter, sponsorship, we just can't do commercials, so it has to be, a non-call to action when we do that.
Well,
so
okay, thanks.
No, it's a great question, thank you. So contributions income is just typically what we get from Boys and Girls Club as a donation for the work we do for the auction, which went extremely well this year. We love that partnership. That's going to keep going. Grants, I set conservatively at $5,000. That typically what we consider grants, the money that comes in, the Community Bridges grant for Emmett Collins for his continued work with us. And a lot of years, like in last year's budget that Doris put together, we just had zero. We had zero expectation for grants. I think because of the combined forces of what Jim and I are capable of doing, that I think we can firmly say, we can build that into the budget and say we're going to find $5,000 in grants. This year we got that $10,000 grant from Tufts, which we won't be able to apply for that next year. But there are other grants with the Charitable Foundation, with New Hampshire Humanities. There are other options. So I think 5,000, I don't think, if you look at past years, there's 15,000, 8,000, 11,000. I still think 5,000 is just a conservative built-in expectation for grants. The Comcast grant, 4104, that's just what we get in the Comcast equipment grants. Community ed, that money has gone out, so that's zeroed. Miscellaneous income, off the top of my head, I can't recall where all of that. Miscellaneous income, that 33,000, that must be the community education, and Mike can nod his head back there. That looks familiar, community ed. Tape and DVD dubbing, so if someone requests a copy of a football game or a hockey game, I would put that under DVD dubbing or tape dubbing, although a lot of what we do now is on USB flash drives that will sell someone a USB flash drive with a file on it for $15, and they can just watch it on their computer, and that's been pretty popular. So class and workshop fees, with the possibility that camps will not happen this summer, which we don't know yet, I'm just going to be conservative and say 1,500, and I'm hoping we do better than that, but it's uncertain times, and camps and classes are literally together group activities. Melissa, at the last meeting, she's not here tonight, but she had mentioned, can we do online workshops? And that's something we're still considering too. But it's hard to do online video camps because it's such a physical, hands-on camp experience. 4,400 annual fundraiser. My plan is, the expectation is, through our annual appeal that we send out every year, we will get $6,000. So that's not sponsorships, but that's people who give to us as part of our annual appeal for fundraising. And I'm sure that's something that the outreach committee can go into more detail about. But to me, I think that's a conservative estimate. It's certainly not 18,000, but that way, in this case, if we don't get 18,000, we're not scrambling because all of a sudden we didn't get that. And as you'll see, it's a pretty balanced budget, even with a lower annual fundraiser amount. Video festival zeroed, Concord on Air zeroed. Used equipment sales, we periodically rotate out equipment and sell it for, pretty cheap, so 300. Credit card points, this is a relatively new aspect where we get points for our credit card points that we gather that can be used for a credit statement on our next statement. So just factoring in how many points I think if we use it for a whole year, because I've only been doing that for probably the past 5 or 6 months. Interest income set to 1,100, and I think we'll get to that. Okay, any questions about revenue? I know I probably went into more detail than I need to, but that's how I am. Okay, expenses, I'll try to rattle through these quick. Again, we're looking at the right column primarily for the proposed expenses. Marketing, setting at 800, and I was reminding the staff that we should try to utilize that budget more. We have the money, primarily for doing Facebook promoted posts is what I'm thinking. Bank service charge, that was just a random Sam's Club fee that came up. And figure that out, that's going to be zeroed out again. Conference and fees, I do want to go to the Alliance for Community Media conference if it happens in the fall, so that 400 would be good for that. Music license, it's for a music license service that we have. Let's see, training and education, that would be like if we wanted to send a staff person to get CPR trained for, summer camps or drone pilot training. So I think we'll put that to good use in a way that we weren't able to this past year. Dues and subscriptions at $850, postage and delivery $350, printing and reproduction, we've done a great job of cutting back on that. I set $300 for that. I think we're gonna we'll go under budget on that, I would bet. Telephone and internet, I've set at 4,000 just in case, because our contract with Comcast, our 3-year phone, internet, business class, runs out at the end of June, I believe. So we're just not sure if there's gonna be an uptick in that. So just figured I would just bump it up just in case, not get caught off guard. Teleview streaming, have that budget.
Josh, can I ask another question?
No, please do.
Well,
Go ahead.
Printing, $350. Can we get the high school printing operation? to
Yep,
print?
yep, and Glenn has been awesome. Glenn has printed for us before. But we typically still like to pay something. You know, we still get it way under cost.
Yeah.
But
good.
usually we'll
Okay,
work.
that's-
Yeah. So Glenn has been really helpful for us, but we still pay something just so that we're not
That's
getting
great.
it entirely for free.
They're so good, so. Yeah.
She's amazing. Yeah, she's been great.
Yeah.
So good point
Okay.
there. Okay. The Teleview streaming, that's for our Teleview broadcast server. Again, I think 6,000 is overshooting it, but let's just be careful on that. Our annual website fee, $250, right on par. QuickBooks support, I've had to use them a lot lately, so that's never been 1,000, but I figured leave it as that. Adobe Creative Cloud, that's annually for our editing software, and actually the whole Creative Cloud for Adobe. So Photoshop, the whole deal. Live video streaming, that's for our LiveView, which we purchased a few years ago, and there's that annual cost. Volunteer services and events, so for when we do our appreciation event, things like that, pretty simple. Health insurance, I think we're gonna be okay at 26.5. I'll talk about payroll in the next slide, where that kind of ties into. IRA expenses, one issue with that is Matt's position technically claims can get the IRA benefits. It's $1,200 a year, and I just still haven't gotten an account information for that. So that's why it's still showing 1,000. Also not factoring in Mike and I for end of year. So that will probably end up being 2,400 if I don't get that account information, but there's only so many times I can ask for that, for the IRA expense benefit. Business insurance, that's gonna be right on par, so that's gonna be fine. Now we're looking at the next slide here. Hopefully it still looks okay for everyone at home. Workers' comp, there's an amount that's gonna get reimbursed to us. I checked with Rally Agency, and I actually sent a double payment. That was just a miscommunication where I thought something was past due, but it had already been sent in. So we're gonna be fine at $2,750. So that number, when I saw that, I had to double check what that was. The accounting audit, we have to get an annual audit. Hennessy and Valley does that. And 6,200 is gonna be just fine for that. Payroll service, which we get through Checkmate, 1,800, again, we're right on par with that. Studio and office supplies, we've done a good job of cutting back on that, just avoiding kind of sort of fluff spending for office supplies that we can find cheaper. So I don't think we're even gonna hit 1,300 this year, but have it just in case. I bumped up state of New Hampshire fees because when we do our annual filing for our nonprofit status, and also I also put in that line item when we do criminal background checks. So just in case if we have to do a few extras. Nothing on TV production equipment, automobile expense, that should hold right on par. The van passed inspection, which is good news, and it didn't need any major work, so that was good news. Repairs, maintenance, we did go higher up this year. If you recall, we just had to go a little higher. 500, I think, typically is what we're gonna end up. That was kind of a one-time occurrence. Travels and meetings, we haven't even put anything in that line item this fiscal year, but just in case for reimbursing for traveling. We really didn't go to any conferences. We didn't go traveling far. Fortunately, everything's in Concord, so we really don't, that doesn't really factor in. Payroll expenses, I'm just gonna give you a little breakdown of the positions that we're planning on for this year. So we have a full-time executive director, full-time IT director, full-time programming assistant, we have a full-time administrative assistant from the beginning of the fiscal year until October 31st, and then that position goes to part-time starting November 1st. So that gives us a little bit of a break in our payroll expenses. And then we also have, I put two, it's actually three. We have technically three on-call part-time producers. It takes up a pretty small part of the payroll. So 205,000, you'll notice that is significantly down from 2017, from 2018. Keep in mind, we did get that one-time community education, 33,000. That's why we were able to bump up our payroll. And also, if you just look at the franchise fees back in 2017 and 2018, that allowed for us to have that a pretty high payroll and one additional position. And I just don't think we have that luxury anymore. So 205,000, that sounds pretty reasonable given those positions. Not just reasonable, but I've added all of it up. So nothing for independent contractor. The Connolly Annual Scholarship, we're actually planning on awarding 2 of them. And I don't think we're going to cut the checks until the next fiscal year in early July. Uncategorized expenses, there was something, I'm sure the auditor will make me recategorize that. And then other expenses, I have nothing for that. So if we look at the full breakdown here for the proposed budget for this year, you have to subtract the 52,500 because that is specifically reserved for equipment. It can't be for operating expenses. And that leaves us with a net revenue of 5,325. Not exactly a huge buffer, but I think given all the circumstances, it's enough of a buffer to get us through any unforeseen operating expenses that we weren't expecting. So, were there any questions from anyone? I guess I'll switch out of the screen sharing, pull it back to the entire board. Hope I didn't knock you all to sleep right there, but I appreciate your patience bearing with me on that. So, I don't know, any questions, or David, your thoughts?
I have nothing. Unless anybody else?
Looks good. Okay. And just
So-
keep in mind, the franchise fees, that is purely an estimate. We're estimating 260,000. We just have to be, like every year, prepared to be adaptive to what the actual franchise fees are that come in. So I think we're prepared for many alternatives for that. So
if there's no questions, do we have a motion to accept the budget?
I'll make that motion.
okay, motion by Clint.
And second?
Second.
Okay, so we're all on Zoom. If you could just raise your hand so we can see you. I'll approve.
Well, we can't
Charlie,
see.
saying you're on not. Do you approve?
Hold on. I think I muted him. Hold on.
Oh.
Charlie, go ahead.
Charlie, do you approve the budget?
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Any opposed? Okay, the budget carries.
Okay. By a
Nice
how many
job,
vote?
Jack.
I'm sorry. How many voting board members do we have here tonight? We have 6. So okay, by a vote of 6. Okay. Good. Thank you,
Anything else,
everyone.
Josh?
Pretty painless. Yeah. So we're embarking into the next fiscal year. I know with COVID-19. I am going to mention this, David. I emailed you earlier today. I wasn't going to say anything, but we are going to look to put together a temporary committee for Concord TV's reopening, which is obviously not as big of an endeavor as the whole state reopening, but it is something that we have to think about in terms of coordinating with the school and doing it safely and figuring out how do we serve the community, our mission. I will be reaching out to a few people to try to convene a committee. I think technically the board would have to vote to approve to create the committee. I don't know if you call that, an ad hoc committee or a temporary committee, and then would have to basically vote to dissolve that committee afterwards, probably later in the fall.
Right.
But I think we have to take that seriously. And Melissa Fisk had passed along some recommendations from the state about how to reopen, under what conditions. And certainly, like I said, we'd have to work with the school district on that. So, yeah, that was just the only major update I have for this public session. So, I don't know if there.
Hey, with that in mind, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Have a great night. Stay safe, and we'll see you next month.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I believe